Her son put a screwdriver through the one thing my dead father left me. At 2:11 in the morning, the HOA president's son crawled through my cattle gate with a screwdriver in his hand and my dead father's truck sitting under the barn lights. His mother thought a few threats, fake HOA fines, and one late-night phone call to the cops would pressure me into giving up the only road into their luxury subdivision. What she didn't know was that every inch of my ranch was covered by cameras, and every lie she told was about to end up in front of a county judge. If you've ever seen power and money push the wrong person too far, stick around for this one. And subscribe if you enjoy real HOA revenge stories where patience, paperwork, and quiet people change everything. Do it, Tyler. He's not gonna hand over that road until somebody teaches him he can't keep saying no. Vanessa Holloway whispered it through the cracked window of her black Escalade at 2:11 in the morning, parked 50 yards outside my north cattle gate. She thought nobody could hear her over the wind. She was wrong. My ranch cameras picked up voices, clean out to 40 feet, commercial-grade audio, crystal clear. I'd installed the system after copper thieves hit 3 ranches north of Willow Creek 2 summers earlier. 9 cameras across the property, solar backup, cloud archive, motion alerts tied straight to my phone. And at 2:11 a.m., every one of them was recording. I watched Tyler Holloway duck under the cattle gate, in a gray hoodie and white sneakers, moving fast through the dust toward my equipment shed. The beam from his phone bounced across fence posts and mesquite brush before settling on the truck parked beside the barn. My father's truck, a restored 1972 Ford Highboy F-250, midnight blue with a white stripe package and original chrome mirrors. We spent 11 years rebuilding it together, one stubborn weekend at a time. Engine block by engine block, wire by wire. The old man died before we finished the interior stitching, but I finished it anyway. Inside the glove box was a brass plate that read, "Built slow, built right." He used to say that every time I rushed a repair. Tyler circled the truck once, nervous energy rolling off him in waves. Then he looked back toward the SUV. Vanessa lowered the window farther. "Hurry up," she hissed. "Scratch it or take it. I don't care anymore." The boy nodded. That told me everything. This wasn't drunken stupidity. This wasn't teenage trespassing. This was permission. I sat alone in my kitchen, watching the live feed on my tablet while coffee went cold beside my elbow. The digital clock on the stove read 2:13 a.m. Elena was asleep upstairs. The house was quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant groan of cattle shifting near the east pasture. Tyler reached into his hoodie pocket and pulled out a flathead screwdriver. "Jesus Christ," I muttered. He jammed it into the driver's side door seam and tried to force the lock. The old highboy rocked slightly on its suspension. The sound hit me harder than I expected. Metal scraping paint. The same sound my father used to stop mid-conversation to avoid hearing. Tyler cursed under his breath and slammed the screwdriver again. This time he gouged the paint beneath the handle, deep enough to expose bare metal under the floodlight glow. Then came Vanessa's voice again from the SUV. "If he won't sell us the road willingly, we'll make this place too expensive for him to keep." I leaned back slowly in my chair. There it was, the real reason. Not the truck, the road. The gravel access road cutting across my ranch was the only direct entrance into Hollow Creek Estates, the gated HOA development, built against my northern boundary 6 years earlier. Every moving truck, ambulance, propane delivery, school bus, and contractor vehicle used that road, and every inch of it belonged to me. Tyler finally gave up trying to force the lock. Angry now, embarrassed, breathing hard. He dragged the screwdriver across the driver's side quarter panel instead. A long silver scar ripped through the blue paint. He smiled when he did it. That part stayed with me. Not the vandalism, the smile. Then he jogged back toward the Escalade, climbed in, and Vanessa peeled away down the gravel road, throwing dust behind her tires. 2:19 a.m., 7 minutes total. I saved the footage twice. Then I sat there in silence. A man learns strange things after 58 years on ranch land. You learn storms announce themselves long before rain arrives. You learn fences fail slowly before they fail all at once. And you learn certain kinds of people mistake patience for weakness every single time. Vanessa Holloway was one of those people. At sunrise, I walked out to the barn with a cup of black coffee in my hand. The air smelled like cedar dust and wet soil from the irrigation ditch. Somewhere beyond the ridge line, thunder rolled low and distant. The highboy sat exactly where my father and I parked it the final night we worked together in this barn. I ran my thumb across the fresh gouge in the paint, cold steel underneath. 11 years of work scarred in 7 minutes. Behind me, gravel crunched softly. Elena stepped out onto the porch in her robe, arms folded against the morning chill. "You've been awake all night," she said. I nodded once. She looked at the truck, then at my face. What happened? I held up the tablet and replayed the footage without a word. She watched Tyler damage the truck, watched Vanessa sit in the SUV, watched the whole thing unfold beneath the timestamp. When it ended, Elena stayed quiet a long moment. Then she asked the only question that mattered. "What are you gonna do?" I looked north toward Hollow Creek Estates, where expensive rooftops caught the first orange light of morning beyond my fences. Vanessa Holloway thought she could pressure me into surrendering my road. She thought fines and intimidation and a spoiled kid with a screwdriver could force me off land my family had held since 1954. I took another sip of coffee. Then I smiled for the first time all morning. She just crossed the wrong gate. Elena studied my face carefully over the rim of her coffee mug. After 31 years of marriage, she knew the difference between when I was angry and when I was finished being patient. This was the second one. "You're thinking about the road," she said quietly. "I'm thinking about everything attached to it." I walked past the barn toward the north fence line, where the gravel access road cut through the ranch like an old scar. Morning traffic had already started. Luxury SUVs rolled out of Hollow Creek Estates toward town. Tires crunching over gravel my grandfather laid down himself in 1956 with 2 hired hands and a borrowed county grader. None of those people owned a single inch of it, but most of them believed they did. That was the genius of developers. Give people stone entry signs, iron gates, and a fancy name like Hollow Creek Estates, and within 6 months, they start thinking the world beneath their tires belongs to them too. The truth sat inside a rusted green filing cabinet in my barn. I opened the cabinet after breakfast, while Elena called our daughter Riley in Austin. The drawer groaned like it always did. Inside sat 40 years of ranch records stacked in thick paper folders held together by cracked rubber bands and handwritten labels. Water permits, mineral leases, county surveys, original easement agreements. I pulled out the one marked Hollow Creek Access, Temporary Emergency Use, signed June 11, 2017. I remembered the meeting because Riley had graduated college the same week. Developers from Dallas arrived, wearing pressed jeans and $1,000 boots, pretending to be ranchmen. They wanted permanent road access through my north pasture, because blasting a second road through Limestone Ridge would have cost them nearly $2 million. I told them no. 3 weeks later, they came back asking for temporary emergency access during initial construction only. Limited vehicles, county supervised, revocable under property holder discretion. That last sentence mattered. Revocable. I sat at the kitchen table, flipping through the documents while sunlight crawled across the wood grain. Every signature was county stamped. Every page notarized. Vanessa Holloway clearly had never seen any of it. Her version of the story probably sounded cleaner. Rich HOA saves isolated ranch community. Stubborn old rancher refuses cooperation. Entitled Landowner Blocks Progress. People like Vanessa always edit history into something flattering. Around 10:30 that morning, a white golf cart rolled slowly up my driveway. Tyler Holloway climbed out wearing mirrored sunglasses and a navy polo shirt like the night before had never happened. The fresh scrape on my truck sat 30 feet behind me, catching sunlight like a knife wound. Bold kid. Or stupid. Maybe both. He stopped near the porch steps and glanced toward the highboy. "Looks rough," he said. I leaned back in my chair. "You got something you want to tell me, Tyler?" He smirked slightly. "About what?" "The damage." He shrugged. "Could been anybody." There it was again. That confidence wealthy parents build into kids when they spend years rescuing them from consequences. Tyler walked closer to the truck, eyes fixed on it like he still thought money could buy it. "I talked to my mom again," he said. "She's willing to offer you 200 grand now." I almost laughed. Not because of the amount. Because he still thought this was about the truck. The answer's still no. "That road cuts the entire subdivision in half," he said. "Everybody uses it. I know. So why keep fighting it?" I stood slowly from the porch chair. Tyler took one small step backward without realizing he did it. "Because your mother thinks using something long enough makes it hers," I said. "That road existed before Hollow Creek Estates, before those gates, before your house, before your HOA. Tyler crossed his arms. "The county maps show community access." Interesting. Not private easement. Community access. Somebody had changed the wording. I filed that away immediately. Tyler nodded toward the truck again. "Look, man. You're sitting on a gold mine here. Sell the road rights. Sell the truck. Retire somewhere. Everybody wins." I walked past him toward the barn. "My father built fences on this land for 43 years. I said, without turning around. "He used to tell me a man who sells the only road through his property eventually learns somebody else controls where he stands." Tyler snorted behind me. "You sound paranoid." "No," I said. "I sound older than you." By noon, the first HOA violation notice was nailed to my mailbox. Hollow Creek Estates Property Compliance Notice Violation. Non-compliant commercial vehicle storage visible from roadway. Fine, $500. The violation photo attached showed my highboy parked beside my barn exactly where it had sat for 11 years. Elena read the notice once and set it down slowly. They wasted no time. "No," I said. "They didn't." Then I noticed something else. At the bottom of the notice sat a fresh county zoning reference number, one I didn't recognize. I stared at it for several long seconds. Then I folded the paper carefully and slid it into a new binder, because somebody inside that HOA had started changing paperwork. And paperwork was where people like Vanessa Holloway eventually buried themselves. I drove into Hollow Creek Estates the next morning, just after 7. Sprinklers clicked across bright green lawns while landscapers unloaded equipment from trailers worth more than my first truck. The subdivision looked peaceful from the outside. Stone entry walls, decorative ponds, white fences nobody actually used for livestock, manufactured country living. The HOA office sat beside the clubhouse near the front gate. I walked in carrying the violation notice folded neatly in my back pocket. Amber at the front desk looked about 22 and already exhausted by life. She glanced at the notice and sighed before I even spoke. "Another one?" she asked quietly. "That makes 2 in 48 hours. She lowered her voice immediately. "Mrs. Holloway's been coming in early every morning this week." "Doing what?" "Printing compliance packets, mostly. Updating maps again." "Interesting." I slid the notice onto the counter. "What county zoning reference is this?" Amber adjusted her glasses and typed quickly. Her forehead tightened. "That's weird. What is? That code doesn't belong to roadway access." She turned the monitor slightly. "It's a drainage infrastructure designation." I stared at the screen. Drainage, not roads. Vanessa wasn't just pressuring me over access anymore. Somebody was preparing paperwork connected to water control. That changed the stakes completely. "Can I get a copy?" I asked. Amber hesitated. "Technically, residents can request community filings." "Good," I said. "I'm requesting." She printed 3 pages and slid them across carefully, like she didn't want cameras seeing her help me. Before I left, she added quietly, "Mr. Mercer, Mrs. Holloway's been telling residents you're blocking emergency improvements to the subdivision." I folded the papers slowly. "Did she mention those improvements sit on my property?" Amber looked uncomfortable. "No, sir. Of course she didn't." By noon, the second violation notice arrived. This time, excessive agricultural noise. Apparently, my cattle trailers violated community quiet standards. I almost laughed reading it. The ranch had existed 30 years before Hollow Creek Estates. Now my cows were somehow the nuisance. Tyler showed up that afternoon with 2 friends in a lifted black Silverado blasting music across the pasture fence. They tore donuts through the dirt turnout beside my north gate, spraying gravel into the ditch while 3 pregnant heifers scattered toward the tree line. Elena stepped onto the porch, furious. "Wade, I know." Tyler leaned out the window grinning. "Road's looking rough, old man. HOA might condemn it." Then he spun the truck again, fishtailing hard enough to bend one of my reflective gate markers sideways. I pulled my phone out and started recording calmly. That changed his expression immediately. Bullies love attention until it becomes evidence. The Silverado peeled away in a cloud of dust. An hour later, Riley Mercer called from Austin. "Mom," said Tyler Holloway was out there again. He was. "You call the sheriff?" "Not yet. You're building something." I smiled slightly. Riley knew me too well. "I'm organizing." She went quiet for a second. "Then, Dad, send me photos of those HOA notices." "Why?" "Because drainage infrastructure codes aren't used by residential HOAs unless somebody's filing state development modifications." I stopped writing notes. "What kind of modifications?" "The kind involving flood control, runoff liability, or emergency access certifications." There it was again. Water, roads, infrastructure, all tied together. I emailed her every document within 10 minutes. At sunset, I walked the northy fence line, carrying a flashlight and one of my old survey plats rolled under my arm. Crickets buzzed loud through the brush while headlights from Hollow Creek flickered beyond the ridge. The reflective boundary markers near the gravel road looked wrong immediately. 2 stakes had been moved almost 6 feet west, toward my pasture, toward the drainage culvert, feeding runoff away from the subdivision. I crouched beside the nearest marker and brushed dirt away with my hand. Fresh shovel marks, less than 24 hours old. Someone had physically altered the boundary line, not by accident. I stood slowly and aimed the flashlight toward the far side of the road. A new survey ribbon fluttered from a cedar branch, bright orange, county issue. Except county crews never worked at night. Behind me, gravel cracked softly. I turned fast, nobody there. Just the road stretching north toward Hollow Creek Estates beneath the moonlight. Then my phone buzzed. A motion alert from camera 4. North Culvert access. I opened the live feed. A man wearing a reflective county vest was kneeling beside the drainage pipe near my property line with a flashlight and bolt cutters. And standing beside him, under the glow of a black SUV's headlights, was Vanessa Holloway. I stayed perfectly still beside the fence. The camera feed on my phone showed the man cutting through the lock, securing the runoff control grate beneath the culvert. Sparks snapped briefly against the steel before the chain dropped loose into the dirt. Illegal modification of a drainage system in Texas was not a small thing, especially during storm season. Vanessa folded her arms and looked impatient. "How long?" she asked. The man in the vest wiped sweat off his forehead. 10 minutes, maybe less. "You told me this would reroute overflow away from the subdivision." "It will." "What about the ranch?" The man shrugged. That answer told me more than any county filing could. I started recording my phone screen immediately, because if they redirected floodwater toward my lower pasture, they could later claim the road had become unfaith and push the county into condemning access control under emergency authority. It was ugly, but it was smart, the kind of smart, desperate people use when money gets involved. I backed away from the fence line without making a sound and headed for the barn. Inside, I unlocked the steel cabinet beside my workbench and pulled out an old waterproof survey tube, county drainage maps, original floodplain records. My father kept copies of everything. I spread the papers across the workbench beneath the fluorescent lights. The north culvert connected directly to a runoff channel feeding Hollow Creek estates during heavy storms. Altering that grate could dump thousands of gallons into my grazing fields during a flood surge, and the road crossed those same fields. I heard Elena step into the barn behind me. "What happened?" I handed her the phone. She watched Vanessa supervise the culvert work in silence. "Then, she's trying to force a flood event." "Yes, for the road, for control." Elena looked back toward the darkness outside the barn doors. "She's not going to stop, Wade." "No," I said quietly. "She already crossed too many lines." The next morning, Tyler arrived just after 9 in the same black Silverado from earlier that week. He parked halfway across my cattle crossing like he owned it. I walked out before he even killed the engine. "You're trespassing." Tyler smirked and leaned against the truck bed. "Mom says this whole road's about to become county property anyway. Your mother says a lot of things. She also said you threatened county workers last night." There it was. I studied him carefully. County workers don't cut locks off private drainage controls at midnight. His smile faded slightly. "Maybe you should be careful what accusations you throw around." "You first." Tyler looked toward the highboy parked beside the barn. Fresh paint damage still visible beneath the morning sun. "You should have sold it when we offered." I stepped closer. Close enough that he finally stopped smiling altogether. "That truck belonged to my father," I said evenly. "You put a screwdriver through 11 years of work, and now your mother's tampering with drainage systems on my land." Tyler's jaw tightened. "You can't prove that," I almost answered. Instead, I heard tires crunching hard behind us. 2 county sheriff cruisers rolled through the gate. Tyler straightened immediately. Deputy Marcus Hill stepped out first, hand resting near his belt. Then Sheriff Cole Bennett climbed out of the second cruiser, wearing his tan hat and old brown jacket, like he'd walked out of the same ranching decade as my father. Cole spotted me instantly. "Well, hell," he said. "Wade Mercer." Tyler's expression changed. Vanessa climbed out of a third vehicle behind the deputies, looking suddenly much more confident. "There he is," she announced loudly. "Sheriff, that's the man threatening county personnel and intimidating residents." Cole Bennett looked at her once, then back at me. "Morning, Wade." "Cole." Tyler blinked hard. Vanessa clearly hadn't expected first-name greetings. Sheriff Bennett removed his sunglasses slowly. "Mrs. Holloway tells me you threatened a survey crew with a firearm sometime around midnight." "I was asleep at midnight." "That so?" I handed him my phone. "Camera 4, I said. "Audio included." Cole watched the footage beside his cruiser while Deputy Hill stood quietly nearby. Vanessa's confidence evaporated second by second as her own voice drifted from the phone speaker. "Reroute overflow away from the subdivision." "What about the ranch?" Shrug. Cole replayed the footage once more. Then he looked directly at the reflective vested man, still sitting in Vanessa's SUV passenger seat. "You want to explain why you're cutting drainage locks on private property after midnight?" The man swallowed hard. Vanessa stepped forward immediately. "Sheriff, this is being completely misrepresented." Cole ignored her. "Deputy Hill," he said calmly. "Get that gentleman's identification." Vanessa's face reddened instantly. "This is harassment." "No, Mom," Cole replied. "Harassment is filing false complaints while trespassing on a ranch at midnight." Tyler looked trapped now. angry but uncertain. Good. Sheriff Bennett walked with me toward the barn, while deputies spoke with the surveyor near the road. "You got more paperwork inside?" he asked quietly. "Enough to bury somebody." I figured. Inside the barn, I handed him copies of the original easement agreements and the drainage plats Riley helped organize the night before. Cole studied the pages carefully. Then he looked up at me. "Wade, somebody's been filing modified county maps." I stayed silent. "The originals don't match what Hollow Creek submitted 6 months ago." There it was. Confirmation. Cole lowered the papers slowly. "And if I'm right," he said, "they didn't just fake road access. He tapped the drainage map once. They forged flood control filings, too." Outside, Vanessa Holloway was still arguing with deputies when Cole walked back into the sunlight holding my paperwork. For the first time since this started, I saw uncertainty hit her face. Real uncertainty. Because suddenly this wasn't about HOA violations anymore. This was becoming county fraud. That night, after Elena went upstairs, I unlocked another old storage crate buried beneath tax records in the barn loft. Dust rolled into the flashlight beam as I lifted the lid. Inside sat a courthouse archive box stamped Collin County Infrastructure Records, 1987, untouched for decades. And buried inside it was the original survey map, showing exactly who owned every inch of Hollow Creek's water runoff system. I carried the archive box downstairs and spread the contents across the kitchen table, beside the easement agreements. Old county seals stamped the corners in faded blue ink, hand-drawn elevations, drainage flow calculations, culvert placement records dating back to 1987. My father kept everything. Riley arrived from Austin just after midnight, wearing jeans, boots, and the exhausted look of somebody who'd driven 3 straight hours fueled by gas station coffee and stubbornness. She dropped her bag by the door and immediately started sorting papers. "No greeting?" I asked. "You only call me home this late when somebody's either dying or lying." I handed her the modified HOA zoning code printouts. "Looks like the second one." By 1:30 a.m., the kitchen table looked like a courtroom evidence display. Riley highlighted inconsistencies while Elena quietly fed pages through the scanner beside the counter. Every document pointed toward the same thing. Vanessa Holloway wasn't trying to buy my road anymore. She was trying to legally absorb it into county infrastructure through flood control redesignation. Riley tapped one page hard with her pen. "Dad, look at this." I leaned closer. "This runoff certification references drainage expansion approval from 6 months ago," she said. "But the engineering seal is fake." "How can you tell?" "Because the state changed seal formatting last year." She slid another page over. "And whoever forged this used the updated seal on a document supposedly filed 18 months ago. That stopped the room cold, not sloppy paperwork." "Forgery." Elena folded her arms slowly. "That's felony territory." "Yes, Mom," Riley said quietly. I stared at the page another long moment before placing it into a new binder. People think revenge starts loud. Most real revenge starts with organization. The next morning, I stopped reacting publicly. No arguing, no calls to the HOA, no confronting Tyler. That confused Vanessa immediately. By Tuesday afternoon, 3 more violation notices appeared on my mailbox. Unauthorized fencing materials, visual blight complaint, agricultural water storage non-compliance. Everyone signed personally by Vanessa Holloway. I paid none of them. Instead, I logged timestamps, scanned copies, and attached them to Riley's growing evidence file. Tyler escalated next. At 6:12 Wednesday morning, my cameras caught him driving an ATV along the edge of my lower pasture, deliberately cutting fresh tire tracks through wet grazing ground near the culvert system. He wanted attention. I gave him silence. That upset him more. By Thursday, Hollow Creek's neighborhood Facebook page exploded with complaints about me, blocking progress and refusing necessary community improvements. Vanessa posted drone photos of my ranch road beside captions about public safety and emergency access. Then she made her first real mistake. She posted a county drainage map, a modified one. Riley spotted it immediately from across the kitchen table. That's not even the same elevation data. I looked closer. The runoff arrows had been altered to redirect flood pressure away from Hollow Creek Estates and straight toward my north grazing fields. If approved officially, the county could eventually argue my road had become unsafe during heavy rain events. Unsafe infrastructure could trigger forced access control. That was the play. Not theft, pressure, legal suffocation. I leaned back slowly. She's trying to turn the ranch itself into the flood zone. Riley nodded grimly. And she's doing it with forged engineering records. Thursday night, Sheriff Cole Bennett called my cell. You home? Yeah. Mind if I stop by? 10 minutes later, his truck rolled into the driveway, carrying enough dust to announce trouble before he even stepped out. Cole entered the kitchen, removed his hat, and looked over the paperwork spread across the table. Well, he muttered, this got ugly fast. Riley handed him the forged drainage filings. Cole studied them carefully. Then, you know the county engineer whose seal this belongs to retired 2 years ago? Silence. Elena stopped scanning papers. I looked up slowly. You sure? Cole nodded once. He's living outside Amarillo now, which means whoever filed these either copied old county credentials or fabricated the approval entirely. Fraud, forgery, infrastructure tampering, and all connected to an HOA president trying to seize a ranch road. Cole pointed toward the culvert diagrams. You also got another problem. What? If those drainage modifications go through before storm season, Hollow Creek's runoff gets redirected straight across your north pasture. I already knew the answer, but asked anyway. And what sits in the north pasture? Cole looked directly at me. Your road. There it was. The entire strategy finally visible. Flood the pasture. Declare the road unstable. Pressure county emergency management. Take permanent control. All while blaming the stubborn rancher for refusing community cooperation. Riley exhaled sharply. She's willing to risk flooding an entire ranch to protect subdivision property values. No, I said quietly. She's willing to risk flooding my ranch. Cole placed both hands on the table.
You planning to file yet?
I looked at the binders stacked beside the wall. Camera footage, forged maps, drainage tampering, trespassing, fraudulent zoning references. Not yet, not enough. Because people like Vanessa Holloway only became dangerous after they believed they were winning. And outside, beyond the kitchen windows, thunder rolled low across the Texas dark. Storm season was coming. It arrived 3 nights later with rain hard enough to turn the ranch road into black glass. By 10:40 p.m., Hollow Creek Estates lost power. By 11:05, my phone started lighting up with motion alerts from the north gate. Headlights stacked outside my fence. Residents trapped behind their own decorative stone entrance while water climbed across the subdivision's lower boulevard. Then Vanessa called. I let it ring twice before answering. Open your south gate, she snapped. No hello, no apology. Emergency vehicles need alternate access through your pasture. No, there was a short silence. You do not get to refuse during an emergency. I'm not refusing emergency access. I'm refusing unsafe access through flooded grazing land in the dark. People are scared, Wade. So are my cattle. This is why the HOA needs control of that road. There it was. Even in a storm, she was still selling the same lie. I hung up and called Sheriff Cole Bennett. He answered on the first ring. I'm already rolling. By 11:30, red and blue lights flashed through rain at my north gate. Sheriff Bennett, its cruiser, idled beside 2 fire department trucks, while water streamed across the gravel in silver sheets. Vanessa stood under a golf umbrella near the HOA entrance, shouting over the storm at anyone wearing a uniform. I pulled on my rain jacket and met Cole at the cattle guard. You got eyes on the culvert? He asked. Camera 4 shows water backing up against the modified grate. His mouth tightened. They touched it again. Looks that way. A fire captain named Luis Herrera stepped between us, water dripping from his helmet. "We need safe passage to 2 homes on Creekside Bend," he said. "Medical call and 1 elderly resident trapped by rising water." I pointed down the gravel route. "Main Ranch Road stays usable if you keep vehicles centered and slow. No south pasture, no side gate. That ground's soft enough to swallow a fire engine." Vanessa pushed toward us, heels sinking into mud. "That pasture road is wider." "It's underwater," I said. "You're lying to protect your precious land." Cole turned sharply. Mrs. Holloway stepped back. She ignored him. "Sheriff, this man is obstructing emergency response." "No, Mom," Captain Herrera said coldly. "He just kept my truck from sinking. That shut her up for about 3 seconds." We moved the emergency vehicles through my north gate, one at a time. I walked ahead with a flashlight, rain hitting my face like thrown gravel, guiding tires away from washouts I knew by memory. The old road held, barely. At the culvert, water roared louder than traffic. The altered grate was jammed half open, forcing runoff sideways into my lower pasture instead of down the original channel. Riley's warning had become real. I recorded everything. The water angle, the broken lock, the unnatural flow, the tire tracks near the drainage control. Sheriff Bennett stood beside me under the rain and watched brown floodwater tear across grass my cattle used every spring. "You got your proof," he said. I didn't answer. Proof felt expensive when it came in the form of flooded land. By 1:15 a.m., the medical call was cleared. The elderly resident was safely out. The fire trucks returned through my gate without damage. Residents gathered near the clubhouse. Wet, scared, and staring at Vanessa differently now. That was the first shift, not legal, social. People who had believed her emails now watched me and Sheriff Bennett keep them from making a worse mistake. Mason Pike, the HOA treasurer, walked up under a soaked ball cap, his face pale. "Wade," he said, voice low. I didn't know she altered the drainage. Vanessa spun toward him. "Mason." He flinched but kept looking at me. "I signed road maintenance checks," he said. "Not flood control changes. Not county filings." Vanessa's voice cut through the rain. "Stop talking." Mason stopped, but his fear told me he knew more than he'd said. At 2:03 a.m., a county pickup rolled through the gate with amber lights flashing. A woman in a yellow raincoat climbed out carrying a sealed waterproof document tube. She introduced herself as Carla Nguyen, county engineer. Sheriff Bennett walked her straight to the culvert. She examined the broken grate, the shifted flow, the fresh tool marks, then looked at Vanessa. "Who authorized work on this drainage structure?" Vanessa lifted her chin. "The HOA acted under Emergency Infrastructure Authority." Carla held up the sealed tube. "Then you won't mind explaining why my office has no approved permit on file." The rain seemed to go quiet for one sharp second. Carla turned to me. "Mr. Mercer, by county order, this drainage system is now under inspection hold. Nobody touches it again without written authorization." Then she looked back at Vanessa. "And if these modifications redirected floodwater onto private agricultural land, somebody is going to have a very serious legal problem." Vanessa said nothing. For the first time since I'd known her, she had no polished answer ready. Behind us, water kept rushing through the dark, and Mason Pike looked like a man about to confess. He waited until Vanessa was busy arguing with Carla Nguyen near the county truck, then stepped close to me with rain dripping from the bill of his cap. "I need to talk somewhere she can't hear." Sheriff Bennett heard him anyway. "My cruiser," Cole said. Mason climbed into the back seat like a man entering a courtroom. I sat up front. Cole left the dash camera running and made sure Mason saw the red light blinking. "Start clean," Cole said. Mason swallowed. "I'm the HOA treasurer in title only. Vanessa controls everything. Checks, vendors, invoices. She tells the board it's more efficient that way." "That's not illegal by itself," Cole said. No, Mason whispered. But the road maintenance fund is. I turned slowly. Mason rubbed both hands over his face. Residents pay $90 a month per household for ranch road maintenance. 86 homes. That's over $90,000 a year. For my road, I said. He nodded without looking at me. We were told the HOA had a county-recognized community access agreement. It doesn't. I know that now. Cole's jaw tightened. Where does the money go? Mason pulled a folded flash drive from his rain jacket pocket and handed it over. Ocklide Infrastructure Account. Hollow Creek Improvement Reserve. Vanessa opened it with herself as primary signatory. I signed the first paperwork because she told me it was temporary. And after that, she locked me out. The cruiser went quiet except for rain hammering the roof. There it was. Money. It was always land, pride, and money. By morning, Carlin Wynn had sealed the culvert with county tags. Sheriff Bennett had Mason's flash drive logged as evidence. Riley spent 6 hours at my kitchen table pulling the account files into spreadsheets, while Elena made coffee nobody remembered to drink. At 2:15 p.m., Riley found the vendor. Dad. She turned her laptop toward me. Holleridge Survey and Water Management. Elsie registered 8 months earlier. Owner, Derek Holloway. Vanessa's brother-in-law. I leaned in. Invoices totaled $63,800 for emergency road stabilization mapping, flood risk redirection planning, and community access preservation. All billed to the HOA. All built around my property. Riley clicked another folder. And here's the map package they submitted to the county. The screen filled with a digital overlay of my ranch road. Except it wasn't my road anymore. On their map, the gravel access had been renamed Hollow Creek Emergency Corridor. The private drainage culvert had been marked as HOA-maintained infrastructure, and 6 acres of my north pasture had been shaded pale yellow under the label, Potential Public Safety Easement Expansion. My hands stayed flat on the table, but inside something old and hard moved. My father had buried 2 dogs on that pasture. My daughter learned to ride there. Elena planted bluebonnets along that fence after my mother died. Vanessa had turned it into a colored box on a forged map. Riley's voice was cold now. They backdated the survey file. How do you know? She pointed at the metadata. The PDF was created 3 weeks after the supposed filing date. Same day, Vanessa posted about emergency improvements online. Cole arrived an hour later with 2 county investigators and a warrant request already being drafted by the district attorney's office. Carlin Wynn joined by phone from the county engineering department. Her words came through the speaker, sharp and steady. These maps were not produced by any authorized county survey team. The seal on page 4 is fraudulent. The flood redirection analysis is fabricated. And whoever submitted this under emergency infrastructure classification exposed the county to liability. Cole looked at me. That gives us felony fraud exposure. Riley added state grant exposure too. Everyone turned to her. She pulled up another document. Vanessa applied for a state emergency infrastructure reimbursement grant last month. $52,000. She used these same fake maps as justification. Cole stared at the screen. Well, he said slowly, that moves this out of HOA nonsense. Nobody spoke for a moment, because the word nobody had said yet was sitting right there between us. Felony. The next day, Mason Pike gave a sworn statement. By Friday, Derek Holloway's survey license was under emergency review. By Saturday morning, 2 more Hollow Creek residents came forward with copies of road maintenance fees they'd paid for years. Vanessa responded the only way people like her do when the ground starts cracking beneath them. She went public. At 7:42 p.m. Saturday, every homeowner in Hollow Creek Estates received an email from her. Subject: Urgent Community Meeting. Ranch Road Takeover Threat. She accused me of sabotaging drainage infrastructure, blocking emergency access, and endangering families. She announced a mandatory HOA meeting at the clubhouse the following Sunday. to vote on legal action securing permanent road control. Riley read the email aloud in my kitchen. When she finished, Elena shook her head. She still thinks the crowd protects her. No, I said, looking at the binders stacked beside the window. She thinks the crowd hasn't seen the maps yet. Outside, the rain had stopped. But Hollow Creek Estates had a different kind of storm coming. The clubhouse parking lot was already full 30 minutes before the meeting started. Golf carts lined the sidewalks beside lifted trucks and luxury SUVs still streaked with dried mud from the flood. Homeowners stood in tight little circles whispering beneath the stone entry lights, while Vanessa Holloway moved through the crowd with the brittle confidence of somebody trying to outrun panic. I watched from my truck parked across the street beside Sheriff Bennett's cruiser. Riley sat beside me, holding 2 thick binders across her lap, one labeled Property Records, the other County Fraud Filings. Elena adjusted the collar on my jacket without saying anything. Then she squeezed my hand once. That meant, finish this. At exactly 6 p.m., Vanessa stepped behind the clubhouse podium, wearing a white blazer and a smile so practiced it looked painful. The room quieted. Thank you all for coming, she began smoothly. As many of you know, recent events involving the Mercer Ranch Road have created serious safety concerns for our community. She clicked a remote. A satellite image of my property appeared on the projector screen behind her. Our subdivision cannot continue depending on the decisions of one uncooperative landowner. Murmurs spread through the room. Vanessa kept going. During last week's storm, emergency access was delayed because Mr. Mercer refused to fully cooperate with first responders. That's not true. The voice came from the third row. Captain Luis Herrera from the fire department stood up slowly in uniform. The Mercer Road is the only reason our trucks reached Creekside Bend safely. Silence hit the room hard. Vanessa recovered fast. Captain, with respect, the larger issue is long-term infrastructure control. She clicked again. Now the screen showed one of the forged drainage maps Riley identified 2 days earlier. Vanessa pointed toward the highlighted sections confidently. County engineering projections clearly show the subdivision requires expanded emergency authority over this corridor. That map is fraudulent. Every head turned. Carla Nguyen walked through the side doors carrying a county document tube under one arm. Behind her came 2 county investigators, then Sheriff Bennett, then Riley, and finally me. The room shifted instantly. People moved in their seats. Conversations died, mid-whisper. Vanessa's hand froze around the presentation remote. I walked straight down the center aisle, carrying the original easement binders my father stored for 30 years in that barn cabinet. Vanessa stared at me like she still believed confidence alone could stop what was happening. Mr. Mercer, she snapped, this is a private HOA proceeding. Judge Harriet Boone entered behind us before I could answer. No, she said calmly. At this point, it's a county matter. That changed everything. People recognized her immediately. County district judge, 20 years on the bench. Not somebody who attended HOA meetings for entertainment. Judge Boone took the front row beside Carla Nguyen, while Sheriff Bennett remained standing near the rear doors with both investigators. Vanessa's voice tightened. What exactly is the meaning of this? Carla placed the forged drainage map onto the front table. The meaning, she said evenly, is that your HOA submitted falsified infrastructure documents to Collin County. The room erupted. Vanessa raised both hands immediately. That is completely false. Riley opened the first binder and slid certified copies across the table. Original surveys, original easement agreements, original drainage plats, every signature time-stamped, every seal verified, every ownership line pointing directly to me. I spoke for the first time. Hollow Creek Estates has temporary emergency access rights only, revocable under property holder discretion. You never owned the road. A man near the back stood up. Then what have we been paying maintenance fees for? Nobody answered him. Mason Pike did, because he slowly stood from his chair beside the wall, holding a folder against his chest. For a private account, he said quietly. Vanessa turned pale. Mason. He walked toward the front like every step weighed 50 pounds. I brought copies of the HOA transfers. He handed the folder directly to Judge Boone. She told us the county required emergency infrastructure reserves, he said, but the money never went to county projects. One investigator opened the folder immediately. Bank records, transfer logs, vendor payments, Derek Holloway's survey company. The room turned ugly fast after that. People started shouting. One homeowner demanded refunds. Another asked whether their insurance certifications were valid. An older man near the side wall yelled, "You told us the ranch road already belonged to the HOA." Vanessa tried to regain control. "You're all overreacting." "No," Judge Boone said quietly. The room fell silent again. She removed her glasses slowly and looked directly at Vanessa. "Your HOA has potentially committed fraud involving county infrastructure filings, emergency grant applications, and unauthorized drainage modifications affecting private agricultural land." Vanessa swallowed hard. Judge Boone continued. "Effective immediately, Hollow Creek Estates' authority over all road and drainage operations is suspended pending criminal review." Shock rolled through the clubhouse. Then came the real blow. Carla Nguyen unfolded another county document. "Additionally," she said, "all modified floodplain certifications attached to this subdivision are now under investigation." A woman near the front whispered, horrified, "Does that mean our insurance could be void?" Carla didn't answer right away. That answer was enough. Vanessa finally looked at me directly. Not angry anymore. Afraid, real fear. Because for the first time, she understood the truth. This was never about bullying one rancher into surrendering a road. This was about the moment paperwork turned into evidence, and evidence was undefeated. Then Judge Boone opened the final folder in front of her, the one marked Temporary Access Revocation Authority, and the entire room went still. Judge Harriet Boone rested one hand on the folder while homeowners stared at her like the air had suddenly disappeared from the clubhouse. Vanessa Holloway looked confused for the first time since I'd known her. Not angry, not offended, confused. Because bullies always believe consequences stop somewhere before reaching them. Judge Boone opened the document carefully. "Under the terms of the original 2017 Emergency Access Agreement," she said, "the property owner retains revocation authority if roadway use creates legal liability, infrastructure fraud exposure, or intentional damage to agricultural operations." She looked directly at me. "Mr. Mercer, do you wish to exercise that authority?" The room exploded instantly. People started talking over each other. "You can't close the road. My kids use that entrance for school." "What about emergency vehicles?" Vanessa slammed both hands against the podium. "This is intimidation." "No," I said calmly. "This is paperwork." That shut her up harder than yelling ever could. Judge Boone raised one hand for silence. "Emergency services will retain temporary supervised access through the Mercer Ranch pending county review," she said. "All non-emergency subdivision traffic is suspended effective tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. The panic hit immediately after that. Not dramatic panic, real panic. Phones came out. People started calculating commute routes in their heads. Because the only alternate access road to Hollow Creek Estates was an unfinished county service trail 12 miles east that flooded every spring and couldn't handle school buses or delivery trucks. Vanessa turned toward me sharply. "You planned this?" "No," I said. "You forged maps on my land." Her face reddened instantly. "You stubborn old." "Careful," Sheriff Bennett warned from the back wall. She stopped herself, barely. One of the county investigators stepped forward, carrying a brown evidence envelope. "Mrs. Holloway," he said evenly, We also need to discuss the unauthorized infrastructure account tied to Hollow Ridge Survey and water management. The room shifted again, because now people weren't just angry. They were betrayed. Mason Pike stood quietly near the side wall while homeowners started demanding answers directly at Vanessa. How much money? You told us the county approved everything. Did you lie about the drainage too? Vanessa looked around the room like she was searching for allies and finding none. Then the clubhouse doors opened. Everybody turned. A sheriff deputy walked in beside Tyler Holloway. Handcuffs. The room inhaled sharply. Tyler's jaw tightened the moment he saw me standing near the front. Deputy Aaron Mills guided him beside Sheriff Bennett. Vanessa's voice cracked instantly. "What is this?" Cole answered calmly. "Your son was arrested 30 minutes ago for felony vandalism, criminal trespass, and destruction of agricultural property tied to multiple incidents on the Mercer Ranch." Tyler snapped immediately. "This is bullshit." Deputy Mills tightened his grip on Tyler's arm. "Watch yourself." Vanessa rushed toward her son. "Tyler, don't say another word." Too late. Riley opened the second binder and removed still-frame images from my ranch cameras. Tyler at the cattle gate. Tyler carving my truck with the screwdriver. Tyler spinning the ATV through flooded pastureland. Time-stamped, clear, finished. Vanessa stared at the photographs in horror. "You recorded us?" I almost smiled. "You recorded yourselves." That landed hard, because it was true. Everything that destroyed them came from their own choices, their own signatures, their own maps, their own voices, their own arrogance. Judge Boone closed the folder in front of her. "Mrs. Holloway," she said quietly, "the county will be petitioning for temporary receivership over Hollow Creek Estates, pending criminal review of financial operations." Vanessa looked physically unsteady now. "No." One investigator stepped closer. "We'll also need access to all HOA accounting systems tonight. You can't just walk in here and take over." "We already did," Carla Nguyen interrupted. Outside, headlights stretched down the subdivision road as homeowners began leaving early, some furious, some scared, some already calling attorneys. Vanessa looked at me one last time. "You destroyed this neighborhood." I looked around, the clubhouse slowly, at the forged maps, at the residents holding fake drainage reports, at Tyler standing in cuffs, at the binders filled with documents my father had saved decades before any of these people arrived. Then I answered honestly. "No," I said. "You just picked a fight with land that already had owners." Silence. Sheriff Bennett nodded once toward Deputy Mills. Tyler was escorted outside first. Vanessa followed moments later beside county investigators while homeowners watched without speaking. No applause, no shouting, just the sound of a kingdom collapsing under paperwork. Riley stepped beside me near the front windows. "You okay?" I looked through the glass toward the ranch road disappearing into darkness beyond the subdivision gates. Tomorrow morning that gate would close, not forever. Just long enough for people to remember something simple. Land matters, ownership matters, and patience wins. Wars loud, people never see coming. At 8 the next morning, I closed the north gate. No speech, no cameras, no performance. Just me, Elena, and Riley, standing in the pale sunrise while the iron gate swung shut across the gravel road. Hollow Creek Estates had treated like theirs for years. I slid the chain through the latch, locked it, and hung a new sign from the crossbar. Private Ranch Road emergency access only by county supervision. 3 cars stopped on the subdivision side within 5 minutes. Nobody honked. Nobody shouted. They just sat there staring at the sign while the truth settled heavier than the dust around their tires. By noon, the county had deputies posted at both ends of the road. Emergency vehicles still had supervised passage. School transportation got routed through a temporary county plan. Regular traffic had to use the long Eastern Service Trail. And for the first time, Hollow Creek Estates understood what Vanessa had risked. Not convenience, access. Within 2 weeks, the HOA was in receivership. A retired CPA named Marvin Hellerstein took control of the accounts and found exactly what Mason Pike feared. Years of road fees collected under false authority, infrastructure payments routed to Derek Holloway's company, and grant paperwork built on forged drainage maps. Vanessa was charged with fraud, falsifying infrastructure documents, and misuse of HOA funds. Tyler took a plea deal for vandalism, trespass, and property damage. He had to pay restitution for the highboy, the damaged gate markers, and the pasture repairs. He also got 2 years of probation and community service with the county road department, which felt like poetry written by a tired judge. Derek Holloway lost his survey license, pending state review. Mason resigned from the board and gave testimony. Hollow Creek elected a new HOA board in January. Their first vote was not about paint colors, mailbox posts, or community aesthetics. It was to apologize. 5 board members drove to my ranch on a cold morning with signed paperwork, a restitution check for misused road funds, and a proposed legal easement agreement written clean enough that even my father would have respected it. Emergency access only. No private subdivision traffic without permission. No road fees collected unless paid directly into a county-monitored maintenance account. No drainage work without my signature, county approval, and Riley's engineering review. I signed it because justice is not about keeping a gate closed forever. It is about making sure nobody forgets who has the key. Spring came slow that year. Riley helped me repaint the damaged side of the highboy in the barn while Elena planted wildflowers beside the cattle gate. Bluebonnets, Indian paintbrush, and yellow coreopsis. She said the road needed something softer after all that ugly business. The truck took 3 weekends. Tyler's gouge disappeared under primer, sanding, paint, and clear coat. But I knew where it had been. Sometimes repair does not erase damage. Sometimes it just proves damage did not get the final word. On a Sunday morning in April, Riley slid into the passenger seat of the highboy for the first time since she was a kid. She ran her fingers over the brass plate inside the glove box. Built slow, built right. "Grandpa would have liked how you handled it," she said. I looked ahead through the windshield. "He would have told me I took too long," she laughed softly. Then we drove the ranch road at sunrise. The gravel sounded the same under the tires as it had when my father drove it. Past the culvert, past the repaired boundary markers, past the pasture that almost became someone else's flood solution, IP paper. At the north gate, I stopped. A yellow school bus waited on the other side under county escort. Local ranch kids had missed 2 pickups while the temporary routes got sorted. Their parents had nothing to do with Vanessa Holloway's fraud. Neither did those children. I stepped out, unlocked the gate, and swung it open. The bus driver lifted 2 fingers from the wheel. I nodded back. Riley watched from the truck. "You opened it." "For the right reason," I said. The bus rolled through slowly, dust lifting behind it in the morning light. Months later, Hollow Creek was quieter. The new board stopped sending nonsense notices. Residents waved when they passed by the fence. Some still looked embarrassed. A few stopped by to thank me. I accepted it when it sounded honest. Vanessa moved out before summer. The Holloway house sold below asking. I never saw Tyler again. But one afternoon, a county road crew came through to inspect the culvert, and one young man in an orange vest kept his head down while shoveling mud away from the grate. I recognized his walk before I saw his face. Tyler. He did not look at me. I did not make him. Some lessons are heavy enough without adding words. That evening, I parked the highboy beside the barn and sat there after cutting the engine. The metal ticked softly as it cooled. Elena stood near the flower bed, watering the bluebonnets. Riley leaned against the porch rail with a cup of coffee, watching the sun go down over land my family had protected for 70 years. I opened the glove box and touched the brass plate. Built slow, built right. My father had meant engines when he said it, but I understood him better now. A ranch is built slow. A family name is built slow. Justice, real justice, moves slow too. But when it arrives with deeds, records, witnesses, and the truth in both hands, it holds. I looked toward the north gate, quiet now beneath the evening sky. Then I said what I wished my father could hear. Land remembers the people who protect it.
And I believe that's true about more than land. I think it's true about your name, your family, and things you choose not to give when pressure starts closing it. West didn't win because he yelled the loudest or tried to ruin somebody's. They won because he stayed calm long enough to keep records, tell the truth, and let the facts speak when it's made the most. Sometimes the strongest thing a person can do is stay steady while everybody else is rushing toward a bad decision. There's also something important about respect in these stories. Community work better when people remember that neighbors are obstacles to push around. A fence line, a gate, or an orange plot may not look important to everybody else, but to the person who builds and protected it, it carries history, and history deserves honesty. If you ever had to stand your ground quiet, you deal with the HOA bad neighbor or somebody trying to pressure you into giving up what's yours. Drop a stand form down in the comments. As always read them, and a lot of folks here probably have story of their own. And if stories like this remind you that patience, dignity, and common sense still matter, go ahead and subscribe. There's be more ranch, land, and HOA story waiting for you right there.